There's one reason. Let's see here. Oh. There we go. Turn off the sound. Good. Live on YouTube. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Get started here. I apologize. I apologize for the delay in getting started. Some technical difficulties, and I'm actually still kind of having them. It's very, very slow for some reason, my connection, and it seems to be lagging a bit behind. So if anyone is, when you start showing up, please say something so I know that you're here. We're only going to be doing this live from to YouTube right now because, well, I was doing it to Facebook Live and YouTube simultaneously till I realized that the Facebook terms of service basically specify that if you broadcast live to anything other than Facebook while you're broadcasting on Facebook, that they can basically ban your account forever. And so didn't want to have my account banned. So I decided that I would have to decide whether I was going to do live on Facebook or live on YouTube. And since I get a whole lot more questions on YouTube than I do on Facebook, I decided that I would do it there. So I trust you can all hear me. Trust you can all see me, and that you're listening in. It says there's people watching, but so if you would please kindly just chat something in, type something in the chat so I know that I'm being heard and seen, that would be very, very helpful. I do wish the picture quality on YouTube was better. That would be really good. I'm not sure if it's YouTube or the encoder that I'm using. So very good. Helen is here from Spain, and Becky from Llandudno, North Wales. Wow. My great-grandmother was from Wales. Judy said I had a hard time finding you today. Well, I just came online. I was late coming online, and I know a lot of people look for me on Facebook, but I won't be doing Facebook live anymore. Simply can't do both of them. It's easier on me to just press a couple of buttons so that I can get started. So, oh, Pete says hi. Pete Luck. Remington says hi. Barbara from Sweden, hi. Natasha from Switzerland. That's all, folks. From Holland. Arne from Denmark. Somebody in the U.S., Vermont, U.S. I should go live in Europe. Most of the people are here. Llandudno. Wow. Hello from England. Hello from England. This is great. This is wonderful. Thank you all for letting me know that you're here and that you can hear me. I don't have a real subject that I wanted to expound on, for lack of a better word, today. So I just really want to open it up for questions. And I do have actually several, because I haven't done satsang for a couple of weeks. So I've kind of got a little backlog of emails that I have not answered. And by the way, thank you to everyone who was concerned about me being ill. I was, which is something I'm not used to. Very rarely do I get ill, but this time, for the first time in probably 30 years, I was actually flat on my back for a couple of days and could do absolutely nothing. I just had to let my body fight off whatever little critter had decided it wanted to take up residence, and my body disagreed. Uh, thankfully, that is, of course, what health actually is. We always think, I got sick and we want to get rid of these symptoms, but it's not really true. Um, if you'd really be sick if you didn't have any symptoms, because then you just die. The symptoms are the body doing what it needs to do to protect the system from an intrusion from the outside. So when these things come, we should not be the least bit critical of them. We should support the body in every way that we possibly can, because it knows what the heck it's doing. Klesu, British Columbia, Buddha's Brain from New York. I had a feeling Buddha's Brain was located in New York. I wasn't quite sure, but I had a feeling that's where it might be. And let's see, Klesu is fresh from making pour over cups on the wheel. Just joy and bliss. I do have questions, and I do know the answers, but I may ask. Very good. Ask away. Buddha's Brain, possible topic. What are the essentials to navigating the journey home? Wow, that's a beautiful question, Mr. Brain, and I will definitely take that up. There's one that I promised that I need to get to first here, from a student of mine named Clara, and she said, "GP, I have a question. I finished an exercise meditation that deepened my awareness that whatever I experience as outside of me is actually inside of me." Very, very good. Brian in Virginia. Hey, Brian. So the question I have is that if all these come from inside me, how can I influence my awareness to create beneficial thoughts inside of me instead of limiting ones? Whoa, very good. Could I influence them? And if I could, then could I influence the pain that I sense from my physical body so that I don't sense it? That would not be very smart, but I'll get to that in a second. And then where do thoughts of lack come from? When I'm meditating and I'm inside of my awareness, I feel calm, but there are still thoughts of finances not being enough, for example. If you can help me out, this would be great. Indeed, I will, because this is really a big one. The first thing I want to cover, bonjour from France. Ghislaine, did I say that correctly? I hope so. Maybe the body is not protecting, maybe it's soothing itself, maybe there's nothing to protect against. I'll get to that in a second too. This is great. Thank you for being such an active group. I love it. So her question is, first off, finished an exercise that deepened my awareness that whatever I experienced as outside of me is really inside of me. It's a very profound perception, recognition, revelation, really, that your perception is all there is to reality. What you perceive is all there is. There isn't anything outside of your perception. Now, many people kind of grasp that, the metaphysics, the law of attraction, and that sort of thing, recognizing that thoughts are things, that our thoughts create reality and all that, and immediately set about trying to create the reality that they prefer. But what doesn't get questioned in that mix, which is extremely important, is when you're attempting to create a reality, when you're attempting to get your desires or make something happen that you want, right? Whose desire is it? Is that really your desire? Is that really the most progressive, advanced desire of life? Or is that just an expression of the false sense of yourself? Because if it's an expression of the false sense of itself, first off, the universe can't answer it, because it can only answer the desires that are coming from the real you, not the ones that are coming from the fake you. And secondarily, if it did answer it, it would be the most cruel thing in the world, because it would prop up this idea. It would actually reinforce the false sense you have of yourself. That false sense of identity is absolutely the essence of everything, which it gets right to the other part of your question. I'll get back to the influence in a second. Where do the thoughts of lack come from? All thoughts of lack, of deprivation, of not enough, all emerge from the false sense of self. That sense of identity that gets formed when we're very, very young, when we first get that feeling that I am separate from the world out there. There's me and there's the rest of the universe. Now, the moment that happens, I get bounded, right? Now, the me that I know when I'm a little kid is powerless, totally vulnerable, totally at the mercy of others, totally subject to being victimized, cannot make love happen or affection and attention and get what it cannot force the environment to give it what it needs, completely at the mercy of environment. Within that framework, our sense of identity forms. So we think that's who we are. Now, over time, it does grow, but the fundamental assumption that even if it grows, it's still separate, it's still limited, it's still bounded, is the essence of the self. And of course, that is always going to feel lacking. It can't not feel lacking because it is lacking. Now remember, whatever you perceive to be true becomes your truth. So if I think of myself, if I really believe myself, I hold that assumption that I am a person, this constrained, constricted, outlined little form, me, and then fighting against the rest of the universe. As long as that's going on, I will experience that as if that was actually the reality. Now, the first glimmer when we say, well, I'm creating the reality is, oh, my thoughts are influencing what's going on out there. Therefore, I can change my thoughts. And of course, that will work for a while. And of course, if anybody's ever tried the law of attraction thing, most people fail miserably. They don't get it. Nothing happens. And the reason is because it really is a reflection of your fundamental idea you have about yourself. And if that doesn't change, nothing else is going to change. So a deeper practice would be to actually be shifting your sense of identity. You can use that inner reconciliation is the best way to do that. But the ultimate goal is to see that the identity you think you are is completely a construction of the mind. It's a fiction. It doesn't actually exist. But everything we believe strongly enough in, we literally believe it into manifestation. And that's where it gets confused. Because when something manifests, we think it's happening out there. We don't realize that that we're in fact looking in a mirror. But we don't understand that the mirror is reflecting what the mirror is reflecting back, and that the reason this becomes a spiritual journey and not just a metaphysical journey is because we have to go directly to the center of the sense of identity. If you do that, you're on the spiritual path to enlightenment, to awakening. If you don't do that, you are simply, rearranging the chairs on the deck chain, on the Titanic, the deck chairs on the Titanic. As Buddha said, you're painting your bedroom while the house is burning down. Right? It seems like a big deal because people, well, yeah, I really want to pursue enlightenment and awakening and all that, but I really need to take care of my business and house. I need some more money and that sort of thing. They're not separate. They're not two different things. The one leads directly to the other. Spiritual inquiry isn't something you do later on, when you're retired, wandering around in a golf cart or something. It is the essence of everything, right? Why not go to the essence? You go to the essence, you get everything, right? If you go to the perimeter, you're going to get part of the perimeter. So I keep wanting to focus people. This is the most practical inquiry you can make because everything is based on it. Every resistance you have in its essence is simply the nervous system attempting to protect and sustain the sense of identity that it has been holding to for a very, very long time. That's what is really at the essence of all resistance. And I teach different ways of getting there and just being with the resistance and allowing. And all of that is simply opening up your energy system to come to the ultimate realization. And to just get back to Clara's question here about can I influence them? The answer is absolutely yes, but who's influencing what? The real essence is the thoughts you have about yourself, which are usually very quietly hidden in all of the ideas we have. If you're having, if there's stuff going on with your finances, right, and you're afraid of not having enough, look at who you are. What's the bound? Who are you? Right? If you're this finite being, then the possibility of lack is always there. But if you're not that finite being, if you are in fact the infinite being itself, then where could there possibly be any lack? If everything I'm experiencing is only my belief in it, then there is no lack. Lack is just a concept. It's an idea, and a bad idea at that. It simply doesn't exist except as a belief. But we're so used to believing what we experience here as being objective that we don't realize that it is just a belief. And you can change a belief like that once you see that it's a belief. That's the key. Lack doesn't exist as a fact. It only exists as an image in the mind, which then manifests itself as experience. That's the long and short of it. That is the ultimate influence. You don't need to try to influence this to be different. You are simply going right to the root, right to the source. And if you go right to the source and you switch that source, it's going to start sending forth sweet water and not bitter, right? Because everything is a reflection of the source that it's coming from. Every thought you have, every feeling, every sensation, every experience is bubbling right out of the essential sense of identity. You are not your body. You are not this mind. You are not these emotions. You are not your conditioning. You are nothing but the singular, unified consciousness. Consciousness is all you are. That is who you really, that's your identity. So I think that should answer it for you, Clara. And I don't know if you're here, but I promised I would let you know when I responded to this. Now let me get back to this other one from Buddha's Brain. What are the essentials to navigating the journey home? Well, I think I kind of covered it right there, right? The journey home is the journey back to who you really, the recognition of who you really are. Now, this is really important because who you really are never changes. It's always there. It's not like it's gone somewhere and now you have to recover it. People think they're on the search for themselves, that they're going to find the truth of themselves, and then they're going to acquire the truth of themselves. And okay, now I'm pure awareness. No, you're always pure awareness. You can't acquire the truth of you. It's the truth. It's the fact. It's the eternal thing that's always there, which means what we're really doing is recognizing the truth. We are losing the false beliefs we have about ourselves and therefore discovering the truth. We are finding that, I have always been this. I was never what I thought I was. So the journey back is simply a constant re-recognizing that I am pure being. I am pure consciousness. I am not finite. I am not limited. I am infinite in scope, and there's only one of us. And then courageously and consistently correcting the mind. Say, nope, that's not true. I am not finite, because the habits are always going to be that you are a finite being struggling in the world. That's the habitual way we are in the world. And it's not just thought, it's reactive patterns, it's emotional content, all of these things, patterns in the nervous system that are manifesting the assumption that you are a finite being. Right? So to challenge that you are a finite being consistently is to challenge even the nature of what you're feeling. You see that those feelings are not based on reality. They're based on the concept you had of yourself, and they're not true now. Now, this is very confusing to people because a lot of people get this beautiful glimpse of the truth as I'm explaining it. They see it and then get completely wrapped around the axle because their nervous system goes nuts and refuses to accept it and is continuing to identify and function as if it was the limited self. But so what? Yeah, of course. You know, you take your foot off the gas, the car's going to keep rolling for a while. A human life is a big ship. You just don't flip the wheel and turn on a dime. It's not a sports car. It's a huge ship, and it's going to turn very slowly. And there will be resistance to it turning. So if you turn that resistance to another story, oh, I'm not making it, you've basically created a different version of you. Now, this is the spiritual seeker who had a glimpse and lost it, and now they're trying to recover it, which is just another concept. It's not true. It's completely bogus. You never were the finite self, never for a minute. So I hope that answers your question about the journey home. I call it the pre-awakening sadhana and the post-awakening sadhana. And it's really what I teach in Inner Reconciliation from A to Z, to try to cover every aspect of what you're going to encounter internally and externally, and give you a framework by which you can understand it. So I hope you'll check out the Inner Reconciliation stuff. It is my way of preparing the nervous system and gradually bringing the nervous system to recognize what you have already recognized, and that is you are the pure consciousness. So Puppy is here. Hello, GP. Happy for the live stream. I'll be watching. Very good. Glad to see you. Let's see. Clay Sue's asking, ultimately, as a piece of collective consciousness, that child felt powerless as that was the collective decision. Was I powerless? I don't think so. Creation is not volitional necessarily. Creation is not volitional necessarily. I agree. Creation is not volitional at all. Creation is creation. It is the nature of existence to create, but it is not an act of will, as you said. It is not an act of volition. It's not, we think of creation as like a person, like a God deciding I'm going to make something and making it, rather than creation being this spontaneous, constant appearing and unfolding. Was the child actually powerless? We could discuss it on a variety of different levels. That the child feels powerless, of course. From the context in which I'm trying to address this and working with our nervous systems, we can use a baseline assumption that children are dependent upon their parents, and therefore they have a very different experience of the world and what it means to be powerful than adults do. And so I'll leave it at that. There are some children that are very powerful, that are very clear about who they are and very strong. I've met a couple that are just, no, that's not true. And it's pretty amazing to see. So it's not a necessity, it's just the most common thing. So that's what I deal with. But I really appreciate you saying that. He then adds, only collective consciousness says I am separate. I have never felt separate, confused, but not separate. That is correct. The idea of being separate is implanted in us. It is not natural to us. We do not feel it. And many people, and all children, no child feels separate. Never. That is something we're learned and we're taught, and then we eventually learn to feel separate, and then to interpret our experience as being the truth of separation, when in fact it isn't. That's simply the way we've been taught to interpret what happens to us and what experience, and what we experience. But that's just the model of our mind. And once the model has a mind that the mind has a model that it really believes in, it basically just sees everything through those eyes. And from that point on, it interprets experience from that point of view, even though it's totally wrong. It's the same as we used to think that the sun was going around the earth. To our senses, it really appeared to be, there's a lot of evidence. But well, look, I'm seeing it, right? And then we wised up and we said, nope, that's not actually what's happening. It's exactly the opposite. It's an illusion, right? But while we were believing it, our life, it was true. Everybody's life was governed by it. It was a fact. It was implemented in culture. The same thing holds true now. We have all sorts of beliefs about politics and economics and religion and race and all of these we believe them really strongly, not realizing that the only reason they appear true to us is because we believe in them, and that they're not true. None of them are true. once we become liberated from these ridiculous ideas, we'll create a world that will just be breathtaking. But we have to liberate ourselves from this notion that I am not generating my experience through my perceptions. Helen says, have to go now, GP. Thank you. What you have said has helped my present confusion. Good. No more confusion. Love to see that go. Inda says, hey from London. Hey from London. The majority of people are like not from this country, from America, which is like great. Marcel says, hey GP, great to see you again. Hello, Marcel. Very good to see you. Mark G. By taking my Mark C. G. By taking my foot off the gas, as I'm doing now with IR, awesome, by the way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Does it take another lifetime for the nervous system to catch up? No. No, it doesn't. You can't really say how long it's going to take. The depth of our insights, the consistency with which we come back to it, the depth of the traumas, how tenaciously the nervous system is holding on to things. I mean, the bigger the trauma we experienced and the fear we experienced that put that sense of that pattern of life into place, the slower it's going to be, and the less willing it's going to be to drop that, because it's purely a matter of self-protection. It thinks if it drops these defenses, it's going to get slammed again, because in the past it did. If it dropped the defense, it got slammed. It happens enough time, and the nervous says, screw this, that ain't going to happen anymore. And it just, and it shuts it down. And it takes a while, patience, love, in order to kind of win that trust back, which is, so I encourage people to say, how long is it going to take? As long as it takes. Who cares? If you're present now with it, and you're just allowing it to be there, and you are expressing love and admiration and appreciation and really coming to understand yourself, that's it. There isn't some magic place out there, awakening, right? No, that is the awakening. It's right there, right now. And little by little, that takes over till it becomes, oh yeah, of course. It becomes ordinary. Right? Awakening is not extreme. It's ordinary. You realize that, oh, this is what's always been here. So another lifetime? No, doesn't take another lifetime, doesn't take one lifetime. You just forget about lifetimes, forget about timing, forget about all of that, and let yourself just fall completely into the wonder of this moment. There's a story I heard about a Hindu story about a sage. A great sage is walking down a path through a forest, and comes across this guy meditating very seriously under the tree, just really intense. And the guy senses the presence of this sage, and he looks and he sees, and it's clearly, he recognizes him as a great sage. And he says, master, please help me. I have a question. The master says, ask me. He says, how many lifetimes do I have left before I'm liberated? And the master says to him, you have 3. And he says, 3 more lifetimes? I have to go through this 3 more times? Oh my God. And he's totally just devastated. Goes back to his meditation. Grumble, 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 grumble. Right? Well, the master walks on a little bit further, and comes across this other guy. Not so intense, just kind of sitting under the tree, smile on his face, and he's just meditating. Clearly, just a regular, average Joe. And and he notices, it's a great sage. He says to the master, tell me, how many lives do I have left before I achieve liberation? And he says to the man, he says, you see that tree over there? He says, yeah, I see that tree. You have as many lives left to live as there are leaves in that tree. And the man goes, really? That's it? It's finite? This is great. You want me to go count them? This is fantastic. He's overjoyed. He knows, oh, this is great. Da, 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 da. And right then the heavens part and this great chariot of fire comes down from the sky and says, come on, we're taking you away. He says, but wait, I thought I had all these. He says, you don't need to wait a minute longer. And off he went. Love this moment and you are in the awakening. It's that simple. Just love this moment. Don't let anything tell you that this moment isn't the perfect moment, that this moment isn't the best moment that's ever happened, because it's simply not true. This is the only moment you have. You are in it constantly. Things are constantly passing in front of it, but you never leave here or now. So I hope that answers your question, Mark C. And Remington says, GP, is there a way to remove conditioning faster? Oh, thanks for the answer. Sometimes it's hard to remember. It's about the quality, not the quantity. Yes, yes. Yeah, remember, your mind is very active because, the moment we now understand the nervous system and conditioning, the mind turns conditioning now into this thing I have to deal with, have to fight. The mind's forever doing that. That's what it does, right? The conditioning is simply a machine that's going. It's not an enemy. It has no characteristics. It's not sentient. It's not something that is fighting you. It is just a bunch of processes that are very natural to life that got put in a particular pattern. These patterns are absolutely essential. We can't live without these patterns. And the patterns that served us when we were at one time in our life because they needed to protect us are not serving us any longer. That's it. Now, the mind will turn conditioning into a big deal. Oh, this is really a problem. Oh, God, this is so hard. When is it going to be over? And what is that doing? It's more conditioning. It's the same kind of reaction, just kind of lamenting. It's like, you are the master of this territory. You're the master of the mind. To become liberated doesn't mean you now just succumb to it. You realize that you are the master of it. You have complete control over your perceptions. Nothing can trick you. Nothing can seduce you. You can only seduce yourself. There's nothing out there that can harm you. In fact, there's nothing out there at all. There's just your perception. The knowing of the thing and the thing are the same. There's not a thing and you that knows it. The knowing and the thing appear simultaneously. They are one. It's an amazing thing to ponder, but it's where non-duality really happens. When the thing perceived and the perceiving and the perceiver all simply collapse into one pure experience. And that, my dear friends, is the reality. There isn't anything out there. There's no world. There's no universe. There's just you. And that you includes the universe as yourself and includes me as yourself. It's not like everything disappears and there's nothing. You just see that everything exists in and as and made of you, the substance of all things. Call it God, call it the I am, call it beingness, whatever you like, doesn't matter. It is simply what is. You are that. You are that one. Meryl, hi from Queensland. Hi, Meryl. Longtime student of mine and a certified facilitator of inner reconciliation. Mark C, thanks, GP. Actually, through allowing, I'm slowly realizing it's safe to come out to just be me. Yes, to just be you. And going back to some of these first questions about manifestation and that sort of thing, you want to manifest, that's great. Know who you are first, because if you don't know who you are, what you manifest is going to be a mess. You're not going to like it because it's not you. you know, I always use the example of the caterpillar, right? If the caterpillar was given the power to manifest, caterpillar thoughts are caterpillar things, right? And the caterpillar is making its vision board. The vision board is going to be green leaves everywhere, because they just kind of walk around eat the leaves, walk to the next leaf. Green leaves everywhere. No predators, no bugs, nothing else to get them. No birds to swoop down and take them away. The leaves all so close together, they never have to worry about falling. They go from one leaf to the next. That would be caterpillar heaven. Guess what? That caterpillar is never going to realize that vision of a future because its destiny is to fly. There's no way in the world it could visualize being one of the most beautiful creatures on the planet that literally flies, doesn't have to worry about falling off leaves. Flies thousands of miles, by the way. So before you go start manifesting, find out who you are. So you make sure that what you manifest is what you actually really want. That's the secret. That's really all I need to say about it. Yes, thoughts are things. We create our reality. And so that really begs the question, well, who are you? Not what reality do you want to create, but who is the you that's trying to create the reality? Because that is the one that's going to determine whether you are satisfied or not. So your statement there, Mark, realizing it's safe to come out to just be me. And you don't even know who that me is. And that's the wonder of it. And who that me is not static. It's not going to be like one day, oh, that's me. Ta-da, done. Nothing more to do. That's the beauty of emptiness, because we're not anything in particular. We can be anything at all. It's like an empty cup, right? This one is not completely empty, but an empty cup has a potential for anything. You could put anything in. It could be a cup of coins, it could be a cup of soup, it could be a cup of tea, right? The moment you put something in it, now that cup has a purpose, it's got mission, it's part of life. Right now it's a cup of tea and has a very function. But take the tea out of it. In its emptiness, it's totally free. It can contain anything. That's you. You can contain anything. And so momentarily, you'll fill your cup with something. Maybe it's a relationship, or maybe it's money, or maybe it's fun, or maybe it's just pleasure, or maybe it's play, or maybe it's contribution, or maybe it's teaching. But you, the cup, remain empty and the potential for anything. So please bear that in mind. Never mistake the content for the cup. You're the cup, not the content. You can contain anything. Let's see. Pete says, ha. Got it. Good. That's a good ha. Yes. Pam Griffin. Seeing as there are so many of us on this side of the pond, wouldn't it make sense for you and Evan to relocate to England? Just an idea. We would love it. We would love it. It's not easy for Americans to immigrate to England. Anywhere these days, actually. Nobody really wants us. But I would love to spend a whole lot more time in Europe than I have been. Jonas Herpe, GP, can I ask you to speak freely about the dark night of the soul? I'm on my 10th conscious year into my spiritual exploration. This process seems to be more challenging as it's deepened. Jonas, the answer is yes. It can get more challenging, but I'll give you a little secret. The challenge is always holding on to the sense of identity. Right? Now, I'm going to be really, really precise with you. You said the 10th year of your spiritual exploration. My guess then is you have had exposure to non-dual inquiry, like for myself or some other teachers. Right? That dark night of the soul is the egoic reaction to the potential of its own loss. And it feels like a dark night because we're still holding on to that sense of identity. You want to simplify and soften the whole process. Open your hands. Begin to just learn to allow your feelings. You're not trying to get somewhere. You're trying to see where you already are and always have been. So as it deepens, there will be a sense of threat to the view you have of yourself. And remember, the view you have of yourself is not just an accident. It's a very powerful and necessary creation of the nervous system, because the sense of identity is necessary for us to function in the world. We begin to believe that that sense of identity is who we actually are, and then the cup gets filled with the content, and now we think we're the content and we forget that we're the cup. Right? Let go of all the content, even of your spiritual exploration. Even let go of the desire for awakening, for enlightenment, and just sink into this present moment and just experience yourself as pure being. That is the awakening. It's that simple. And that pure being isn't holding on to anything. And then the entire process becomes easier and gentler, much more loving. There isn't a need to go through a dark night of the soul. It is not a necessity. It's like the story I just told of the man who said, you have many lives to live as there are leaves on that tree, and he gets all excited. I mean, he's just so great, fantastic. I'll count them. Now I know this is wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And boom, it's no longer needed. He's there. So when you're feeling the dark night of the soul, recognize that you are simply attached to a certain sense of self. And then just ask the sweet question, okay, what do I need to simply let go of? And then watch how that darkness shifts. And you'll see the darkness. The ego doesn't want to let go. And in some instances, it's painful. In some instances, some of the things we're letting go, we're very fond of. The things we're attached to are the hard ones. I mean, the pain, yeah, done with that, I'm good. But the stuff that we're still kind of attached to, and I'm forever discovering those places that I'm still attached to, and just kind of laying them on the altar and giving them over to truth. So does that answer your question, Jonas? I really hope so, because it really touches me to hear this. And being consciously in your 10th year, you're graduating. You're not a novice anymore. It's time to step up. So thank you, buddy. Gladiator, have you ever tried accessing Akashic records? I think that's a pretty good way of discovering who we really are. Yes and no. It's a good way of discovering the patterns that are making up this life. It is not who you are. Who you are is never captured in any record. It is not captured anywhere. It is totally free. It has no history. It has no future. There is nothing binding it. It is subject to no rules and no authority other than itself. It is God incarnate. So it is useful, as a lot of esoteric things are. I've known some people who are incredible astrologists and palm readers, and uncanny the things they can reveal. But what they're revealing are karmic patterns and the like. The things like the Akashic record, in Buddhism, they refer to that as the repository consciousness. It is the very subtle consciousness that gives rise to lifetime after lifetime. It's that consciousness that we get to and expunge. And then you've arrived. That's where all the seeds are burned, and these thoughts don't even arise anymore. So the Akashic records are useful, as are lots of these practices. From the point of view of helping to navigate the life, but they do not tell you who they are, because they don't know. And if you look really closely, you'll see that the assumption of all of these is that there is some kind of a finite self that started somewhere, is going, while it's ephemeral and it's far less limited than we think it is, it's still an individual soul as opposed to some other individual soul that is going through series of events that is causing it to grow. That it is a much more rarefied self-image, but it's still finite. You are not an it at all. You are the one infinite being with no boundaries whatsoever. Not even the boundary of a soul. No boundaries. Formless, nameless, indefinable, and unknowable. You cannot contain that in any record. I hope that answers your question there. Gladiator? and who were who we were in our past lives. Um, whatever, right? I love this subject because, you know, think of a past life as a dream. It really is. It's a long dream. It goes on for, 70 plus 80 years, maybe sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Um, but like every dream we have, every night we have a dream, and you wake up the next morning and you don't remember it. Or maybe you wake up and you remember a little bit, and then it's gone. I mean, we're sitting having a conversation now. You're Gladiator, and there's Remington here, and Pam, and GP, right? And we're all, this is who we are. And so we have this idea that in the next life, I am going to be somebody else. But in the next life, you're going to be some complete, the I you're referring to is going to be referring to something completely different. It might not be the same gender. Hell, it might even be the same species. It might be a donkey. It might be a donkey in some looking in the window at some sages and getting satsang and donkey talk, right? You don't know, right? So you say, I'm a donkey. No, you're not, right? So when you're looking at those past lives, what you're looking at is past incarnations, past identities that we thought we were. And you are no more this identity than you are now. And guess what? When this body dies and something else, I'm not going to remember this. GP's gone. Poof. It's not like, I'm going to resurrect him or something. He's going to appear, and GP is somehow going to reincarnate into another body. The essence just continues to manifest itself, but that essence is what is stored in what Buddhism is referred to as the repository consciousness. It is the most essential sense of self that gives rise to lifetime after lifetime. And the ultimate achievement of the Bodhisattva and the Buddha is they see through that, and it is gone for good. And now whatever arises are never contained. And there's all sorts of powers and stuff that go with it, but I'm not even going to get into that. It's not worth it, right? Just free yourself from who you think you are. Because in the last life, the who you thought you were was just a different who you thought. But it was no more true, and this one is no more true, right? So really understand that, and you'll start letting go of all these ideas, because once you see that, you realize that you're not even affected by karma. Karma is just a dream that comes and goes, has nothing to do with you. That's the real liberation from karma, is to see that you are not incarnating. You have been the same the entire time, and that empty cup, one incarnation has filled the cup, and then another, and then another, but the cups remain the same, and that cup is you. So I hope that answers your question there, buddy. Isn't egoic death dangerous, though? Remington says. Yes. This is a great question. The death of the ego without the proper preparation of the nervous system, so that the ego is replaced, the false ego is replaced by the true sense of self. That is the death and resurrection. That is not just the death. The ego dying or never developing gives you schizophrenia and mental illness, and people get locked up and they have to be drugged because they have no way of functioning in the world. The problem is we get stuck in the sense of identity. Now, if you recognize it is just a sense of identity and you dismantle that, the higher sense of self, the true sense of self, which is not limited, steps in. And the sense of identity, the sense of I, moves out of the egoic I and into the true self, which is kind of a superego, you might want to say it. I mean, it's beyond the ego, but it is very much functional within the world. It isn't dysfunctional. A weak ego is dysfunctional. A strong ego is functional but dangerous. So what we really need are healthy egos that can eventually be dismantled and let go of and replaced by the true light of the center, by who you really are. Then it's not dangerous. There's no danger in that whatsoever. And it's not really hard, because once you see that what we know of as our ego is nothing but a bunch of conditioned patterns and responses and the like, then we go, oh, right, of course. I'm only projecting upon it a sense of self when it's just a bunch of patterns. It's just a bunch of functions. I keep bringing the point back there because life is just a bunch of functions, and then we project on life this sense of a self that's not in life. There's no self in this body. This body doesn't have a self. It's just an enormously complex collection of cells. There's no self here. So where's the self? Well, the self is everywhere. Or you could say in Buddhism, they say no self, right? Which is exactly the same thing. The self is everywhere. It's infinite. The self is animating this body. The self is animating that body. Right? The body has no self in and of itself. It is simply a vehicle that's being driven by this other thing, and eventually it'll, crash and burn, right? But it's irrelevant to the driver. So, Dan Dagang Hui. Hi, GP. This is Dagang. I hope I said that correctly. From California, could you shed some light on all sorts of addictions? Is it a problem we should overcome on the spiritual path? What is the best method? There's a lot. It depends on the particular addiction. And I always encourage people to get help, especially if it's really impeding your life, costing a lot of money, costing your relationships, like an alcoholism and things like that. But addictions take many, many forms. If it isn't really extreme, then I say, well, the first thing to do is let yourself off the hook and give yourself a heavy dose of forgiveness. Because the thing that I notice most of all, the most debilitating thing is how horribly condemning people are of themselves when they get an addiction. Hey, look, you start smoking, you start drinking. They're addictive substances. You partake in an addictive substance, you're probably going to get addicted. Duh. And of course, the people who are selling it to you want you to be, right? So it's like, it's not like a big deal, right? Yeah, okay. So you sip the Kool-Aid, and now you can't stop sipping the Kool-Aid. Okay, cool. Right. So first, let yourself off the hook. Then, when you're really okay and forgiving yourself, there's immediately some space. And then you can start really looking into your heart. What is it that I'm really wanting? Every addiction is a solution. It's just a solution that isn't working. I mean, I've got, an addiction is like I've got a scratch on my nose and I'm scratching my butt, right? My nose itches, but I'm scratching my butt, and I'm wondering why I'm still scratching, right? An addiction is a solution that doesn't fit the problem. What you want to do is find out what it is you're really yearning for. What is that you're where is the real itch that you need to have itched? It doesn't mean you just have to deny everything. You can't do that. You can't deny yourself the pleasure. But when you find a higher pleasure, a pleasure that's much more satisfying, suddenly things start to come into balance, and the body naturally gravitates towards that. So there's a lot of good things about it. There's some books I can recommend, especially if it's about alcoholism. There's a couple that are really, really good and helpful. There's different kinds of programs. Don't be embarrassed. Get some support. Um, get groups. The 12-step programs I'm not a huge fan of. They seem to be a bit heavy, but whatever your deal is, there's get it out there, talk about it. It's not a big deal. We're all bozos on this bus. We're all screwed up, right? It's the same, right? So it is nothing to be ashamed of. I can't tell you how many addictions I've gone through in my life. It's just, it comes with the territory, and it's taught me a lot of humor and a lot of humility. So, just be the ordinary human being, because that's what the Buddha really is. Marcella asks, how did you discover all of this? Well, the short answer, Marcel, is grace. Yeah. There was a deep need, a very, very difficult childhood where I was suffering constantly, and I wanted answers. And this suffering was punctuated by these enormous spiritual experiences, which left me absolutely bewildered and completely incapable of understanding. On top of that, a natural curiosity, but on top of that, also an arrogance that wanted to serve itself. And so I had all of those factors going on that were driving me. But grace is a beautiful thing. Little by little, I was just kind of led one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, sometimes in just enormous revelations that were life transforming in a split second, other times just kind of plodding one little thing at a time. And little by little, all of a sudden, the real nature of wisdom just began to open, and I could easily see both sides of the coin, and I could see that the real problem we all suffer from is we get stuck in a position which shapes our world, shapes our own experience. And then I began to see that just everything that we think of ourselves is nothing but a thought. And then something just starts to awaken inside. Why? Because it's your nature. The good news about discovering this, it's your nature. It's not like you have to go out and get it. Even your interest in spiritual things is being driven by the truth of you that's actually calling you inside. It may look like it's a search out there, but it's not. It's actually a deep voice inside of you that's calling you back here. It just seems to be out there because we don't know how to listen to this voice yet. So the voice says, fine. And it appears out here. It appears that a teacher, a book, or a guru or something. Right? And eventually, if it's a real teacher, if it's a real guru, they will constantly turn your attention back to where the real source of it is. And so the discovery becomes something that when you really want it, it will find you. When you really decide that you want the truth more than anything, it's game over. From that moment on, it's not your life anymore. Truth is running the show. It's got some work to do because you don't recognize the truth when it as it's first appearing, because you have an idea of what it's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to do for you. And when it shows up and doesn't bring you all the boons that you're expecting, you're, well, this must not be it. But believe me, if your prayer for the truth was sincere, it's it. It's going to start delivering you everything you need to prepare you for the ultimate awakening, the ultimate Buddhahood. And you don't even have to worry about how long it's going to take. The game really is over. It's a done deal. It's the denouement. It's just the last minute as they're, tying up the last pieces of the plot lines. So thank you for asking that. Beautiful. Junk Tube 4000. Are we on the Junk Tube now? You tend to be good at explaining things. How would you describe reincarnation? Never stood out it could be possible. What reincarnates? Excellent. Nothing reincarnates, right? If you take a gold statue, a beautiful gold statue of an angel, right? Beautiful. Right? And you melt it down and make it a gold statue of an ugly gargoyle. It's the same gold, right? The form is simply different. The problem is, because of these seeds that are in the repository consciousness, we are constantly identifying with the forms that appear before consciousness. We're always identified with the content of the cup and not the cup. Now, it's natural for consciousness to constantly to express itself. So an incarnation is nothing more than consciousness manifesting itself. It's, the pure consciousness, the pure awareness, unmanifest, which always in its dynamic state is always manifesting. You could call it a modulation of the field, if that's a good way to think of it for you. But the field remains formless, and it can take any form. That is what we would call incarnation. It's really just the reality manifesting itself as a form, which is temporary and constantly changing, giving expression to the changeless truth. Okay? So, but nothing incarnates. When we see the incarnation and then we project upon it the sense of self, when we make it into a thing, a person, and other persons, and a world, and all these things happening we call it incarnation, and then we think, well, that one dies, and then I guess I incarnated another one, and now we call it reincarnation. Nothing's ever incarnated. Content is constantly appearing. It's the nature of consciousness, right? Consciousness is forever pondering its own nature and producing image upon image of what it is, but it never enters in to what it is manifesting. It never becomes that, any more than Mozart got inside of his music and got trapped. But that's what we think it is. The manifestation. You wrote this song and now you're inside the song. I can't get out. I can't get out. I'm stuck in this roll out the barrel polka. Oh, it's hell. But you're not in it. That's me. You are not in this body. You didn't incarnate in the body. The body appeared to you. And when the experience you're calling death is, the body's going to disappear. And it's just going to fade away, and that whole thing's going to, and then whoop, there'll be another one appearing. It's the way it is. You're not in any of them. You're the consciousness that's aware of them. That's the secret. So incarnation is just kind of a series of dreams, but you never actually enter in it. So incarnation is actually the wrong word. You don't incarnate or reincarnate. There is simply the absolute pure awareness knows itself as dynamic consciousness and therefore experiences itself. It experiences its own beautiful oneness as two. I mean, that's what we know of as love. You know, fall in love and united, and you're one, and just, everything is just, you just can't get close enough. I mean, that is an inkling of the experience of oneness. But oneness isn't blank. It's not empty. It's not void. It's not nothing. It expresses itself in two-ness, being in unity, and yet never becomes the two. It's always the one. I mean, it's beautiful. It's very paradoxical. It's very difficult for the mind to grasp. So just kind of take that in. Nothing incarnates, nothing reincarnates. Everything is appearing and disappearing in front of you. You remain absolutely the same. Gladiator says, oh my goodness, we're just getting a lot of questions here. Possible someone make mental illness like schizophrenic to resurrect or do the process? I'm asking about curing, maybe alleviating symptoms of. Yeah, of course. Anybody can be taught to allow what they're feeling and to really have the experience, pure experience, right? The problem with people who are ill because they've just been so put upon, and they're so out, and they're so cut off from life, that their experience of their illness is very trying, and their self-image is extremely horrible. But even they can get a certain amount of distance that allows them to be the observer of it. And at that point, healing can happen, symptoms can be alleviated, and certainly suffering can be alleviated. Claviator says, I can't believe that many astral projection teachers think that our astral body is awareness you were talking about. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Because they're simply unaware that awareness is always here, and it's what everything happening in. And even astral projection or any of these esoteric experiences are also happening in front of awareness, just like this body is. We call this body normal. It's like, yeah, no big deal. And then I astral project, ooh, it's this big thing. They're no different. They're made of exactly the same substance. Just one we call ordinary, the other we call it extraordinary, and we prefer the extraordinary. But they are made of exactly the same thing. It is no more miraculous that this body is moving and functioning, and there's nothing here other than a bunch of functions. It doesn't get any more miraculous than that. I just can't believe that many yesterday. Remington, could you make a sign for smoking? Yes, there is the Easy Way to Quit Smoking by a man named Alan Carr. It's a book. They actually have clinics in England and the United States. And I think it's like in England, it's about 300 or 400 pounds for a 4-hour session, and you're cured in one session. If you want to go do it like that, you can also read the book. It's an incredible system, and the system he uses is very simple. It's shifting your perception so you aren't attached to smoking anymore. It breaks all of the associations, and you see smoking as something not enjoyable anymore, and their success rate is through the roof. It's like 95%. So the Easy Way, there's a whole Easy Way series. Easy ways to quit drinking, easy way to keep smoking, easy way to quit fear of flying, all sorts of them by a fellow named Alan Carr. He's passed on, but the organization is still going on, so that's the one I recommend. The Other Son says, hey GP. Hey Other Son. Carla, my addiction is watching YouTube videos and can't stop. Need some words to help me, please. Well, as long as you're watching mine, it's okay. No, boy, social media is addictive. There's no doubt about it. It's distracting. It's intrusive. Even in your computer, I was like, oh, somebody mentioned you in a post up in the thing. What it really means is that your life has lost some of its passion, and that you you want to reconnect with your life in such a way that it's absorbing. Now I know the feeling. There are times, even in this, when I just kind of I lose my energy. It's like no more creative ideas. What else am I going to do? Uh, kind of thing. Because other stuff I have to do. If I had my way, I just sit and do satsang all day. But I also have to make a living and pull things together. So what I highly recommend is that you reconnect with what you care about. Find out what you care about. I don't know if you've taken any of the meditations or any of the courses in MasterHEART, uh, Carla, but the whole interreconciliation thing is a way of coming to terms with all of these places where our energy is going. And it's easy, right? And there appears to be a momentary something momentarily satisfying, but the truth is, you're saying my addiction watching YouTube videos and can't stop. That's not true. You can stop. So stop telling yourself that. The fact is, you don't want to stop, and that's very different. Doing what I want or doing what I don't want that's power, because I'm making a choice. When you say I cannot stop, you're saying I don't have any choice. You do. Right? Where do you want your life, your heart, your focus, your attention, your energy to go? Right? Do you really want to give your attention to Facebook when all they want to do is put a bunch of bullshit in front of you and sell you stuff with the ads? That's why it's there. It's not there to benefit you. It's there to benefit them. Is that really what you want? I don't think so. Right? So stop saying that to yourself. You have not been overpowered by this. These are all just a series of choices we've made, and we forget we made the choice, and we think now that we're doing it because we can't stop. But the fact of the matter is, we don't want to, because we don't really want to face the emptiness that made us look to it in the first place. That's where inner reconciliation comes in. That's where it starts going right into those feelings of emptiness, the feelings of loss, grief, the hurts, the disappointments, so that you can reconcile with them and you get your life back. So, Opazor, hey GP, I would love some guidance from you. How long did it take from a deep awakening until you started to share videos? Cosmic love from Sweden. Well, it's kind of an ongoing thing. And anytime you putting yourself out there to be a teacher and sharing videos, first off, start sharing some video, start making some videos. If this is, if you feel you've arrived at the point where you're competent as a teacher and you have enough experience and ability to explain things that you can reach at least a certain number of people, you don't have to get to the whole range of it. Make some videos and watch them back. And then share them with some people and see if the message is getting across as clearly as you think it should. I've been doing this a very, very long time. I'm extremely comfortable in front of the media. Right, so it's easy for me to express myself. All right, somebody else, even if you understand the subject really well and have a deep yearning to teach it, there may be some skills you need to learn as to how to bring that across in a video. So don't dismiss that. So I can't say, okay, 3 weeks from the time you have a deep awakening, it's time to share videos. Something inside of you will awake. It's natural for us to want to share. It's natural for us to want to have somebody else, discover what you've discovered. I mean, it's beautiful, right? When you're stepping into the role of the teacher, you always have to be extremely vigilant and on the lookout for your ego. There isn't a day go by that I don't check my ego, and I'm really vigilant about arrogance and who's this about and how am I going to benefit from this. They're very subtle, they're under the surface, they're unavoidable. Even the greatest masters have said, be vigilant till the day you die. So if you are that, if there's this, if there's a nice, healthy self-skepticism, a deep desire to share, and a little bit of skill, just give it a shot. Okay? And cosmic love from Sweden. Thank you. Cosmic love to you. What do you think about spiritual channelers such as Bashar, the other son? I find them very entertaining. I find it very interesting. Um, I I have no evidence for or against whether or not they're actually channeling other beings from other dimensions to just have access to a different part of themselves. I tend to think that it really is just there's a wisdom inside of us, but we're so alienated from it that we think that it's this other dimension that's speaking to us when in fact it's your own heart. It's no different that if you meet a true spiritual master and you feel real connected and you're listening to them, you think that's another person speaking to you. In fact, it's you, it's your own heart. And the guru will tell you that. And the guru will gradually show you the Sadguru. And the Sadguru is the ultimate guru, which is inside, which because you didn't believe it and wouldn't listen to it, appeared as a guru, or it appears as a disembodied voice, or as appears in any number of forms. The ultimate wisdom has one source, and it's the heart. It's your very heart. There's I have no evidence that there's other dimensions of people channeling stuff to us. You know, I think we come up with a lot of really interesting ideas, but as long as I believe that, somehow that wall between me and the wisdom breaks down. Because I'm not denying the quality of what they have to say, Bashar and Abraham and Theo and all of these guys. I'm not denying the quality and the entertainment value of what they have to say. I don't doubt. I listen to it. Yes, that's very true. And they've helped a lot. They've helped a lot of people. So whatever breaks down that wall that gives you access to it, and for a while you could believe that it's another dimension. Some people, they feel like they're hearing God speak to them, and it works out. So, and the wisdom is so like Neil Donald Walsh, right? Conversations with God, right? He saw it as God, as another being speaking to him. What's the difference? Right? What's the real source of it? That's what I want to know. And what I've discovered, the real source of it is the Prajnaparamita, the ultimate wisdom, the true wisdom, which in the Heart Sutra he said is the mother of all Buddhas. It's the source of all wisdom that lies deep within you, and it's already yours. And eventually, that idea that is coming from somewhere fades, and you find that it's your very self. So, Jonas, one clear expression of ego identity is our will. I've witnessed the dissipation of my personal will for many years. It's quite disorienting. How do we move beyond will? Naturally, slowly, and gently, right? You're not moving beyond acts of will, right? Choices in it. You're moving, it's not the choosing that has to go away so that you're blank and you don't know what to do and you don't know what kind of shoes you're like or what ice cream you want to buy. What you move beyond is the sense of a chooser. You find that choices just happen very naturally. And like anything else unfolding in life, this is just the inevitable next step. And when you see it like that, you suddenly realize, oh, there's not really a chooser. There's just a choosing thought appearing. And I'm sitting here, which way I'm going to go, right? And then thought we're going this way happens. And immediately the ego says, I made the choice. Well, that's not true. The choice just appeared, right? And you could question whether or not even the word choice works at that moment, but who cares, right? Yeah, there was a choosing thought. I was at a crossroads. I had to go this way. I'm going this way, right? If you really look right at the moment when that thought appears, you find that it appears spontaneously, and there was no actual choosing taking place, just the spontaneous appearing of the sense of direction. And so that's how you move beyond the will. You don't move beyond all the natural functions of life, which are choosing. You move beyond the sense of a personal chooser, and you find that life is simply moving. And that's the flow. That's surfing the waves. The other son says they mention non-duality, but that we can also do something with this knowledge. On one level, yeah. In a sense, yes. In a sense, we're doing something with it right now. But the ultimate discovery is that there's no you to do something with it. All there is the knowledge, and that knowledge isn't static. That knowledge is a constant unfolding that we call the universe, and that is who you are. And so you're not doing something with the knowledge. You are the knowledge, and the knowledge itself is expanding and creating a universe. There's no active will, there's no active effort, and there's nobody doing it, right? There's only the pure being and its own nature. So there isn't a matter of this guy's doing this to this guy. All of this is just really happening on the screen of being. Marcel says, wow, thank you for answering my question. Very helpful. Good. Oh, yay, yay. Gladiator, this may be a funny question. I'm sure it is. But I'm wondering why many spiritual teachers do semen retention. Many of them say it is a must. It's a school of thought. It's a school of thought. I know that, if I go for a while without sex, which has been a while, and not do it yourself, that there's a different kind of energy in the body. Is it better or worse? I mean, a lot of people do. There's a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of people just being celibate. The Buddhists eat one meal a day. Like 11 o'clock, they have their meal. At 12, they're done. They don't eat another thing. So all sorts of different kinds of practice and aesthetics. According to Buddhists, none of that is necessary. None of that was necessary. It's a practice. They're beautiful. They may be useful, but they're not necessary. When you discover who you are, that's all there is to it. That's what Buddha said. He went right to the heart of the matter. It isn't about all the practices that I'm doing that's trying to make me into a spiritual person. It's the discovery of who you actually are. And at that point, you can choose to retain your semen or not. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? They are not practices. They lead to powers. There's all sorts of yogic powers you can have. Levitate and walk on water. Yeah, I mean, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of different kinds of healers and stuff. In the West, they poo-poo all that stuff, but it's real. All this stuff happens. But none of those will tell you who you are. My job is satsang. Satsang is all of that's great. Go ahead and do it, but it doesn't tell you who you are. I'm here to tell you who you are. You are pure consciousness. And that is the answer to the deepest spiritual question. The rest, great. Have a great time. Do whatever you want. But the idea that somehow that's necessary for awakening is simply wrong. Nothing is necessary for awakening. It has no prerequisites. The truth does not need something else to make it true. All we need, therefore, is to discover what's been here the entire time. Let's see, Remington, the book didn't work for me. Oh, that book didn't work for you? Try it again. Have to go. Thanks for the talk, Remington. Try it again. Yeah. Or try the course. It's worth the try. Right? He was talking about addiction and smoking. It's worth a try, man. Right? Don't stop. Don't give up. Don't try until you find something that does work for you. Every attempt you make that is strong, every attempt you make that's honest, just really reinforces it. It really is communicating to your nervous system, I don't want this anymore. I want something else. And it'll get the message. So the other son says, thank you for the explanation, GP. You're more than welcome. All right, 523. No more questions. What are the yogic powers? Can they hurt you? Yep, they can go either way. People use them for good. They use them for ill. Most of the time, they use them for good. They're innocent. They're pure. There's a few people that want to practice the black arts to hurt others. There are defenses for that. It's not that big a deal. I always urge people, as does every true teacher of spirituality, forget about it. The pursuit of yogic powers is a waste of time. It is a distraction. It's just one of those side roads you can get in, and you can feel very powerful that you can do all this stuff. You can feel very much like you got it together. And in fact, you still don't know who you are. Focus on who you are. The rest will take care of itself. As Christ said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Go to the source. Judy says, I love you. Thanks, GP. Another awesome time spent with you. Thanks to everyone for their questions. Mark C, a metaphor that works for me is that I'm simply the river moving through life, only to discover that the river is life. There is no distinction. Perfect, Mark. Yes, that's all. That's all, folks. I'd like to recommend reading Vastakra Samhita. Very good. Truth already is. Doesn't something have to be done to perceive the truth? Yes, that's exactly what we're doing here. Constantly bringing our attention back to see through what isn't true. That's just breaking down our false beliefs. It doesn't require the kind of rigor and practice that most people think. It simply requires an honest, persistent internal inquiry. So yes, there is something to do. I mean, I'm teaching a practice in inner reconciliation. So Pam says, as a woman, I'm glad I don't have to practice semen retention. Yes, you have a distinct advantage. Milad says, thank you. Are more people waking up, or people just interested in the phenomenal spirituality? Both. Both. Yeah, it's a bit trendy. But yes, but people are having genuine experiences, and the world is just putting enough pressure on us that we want it. So Anne says, thank you. Another great satsang later. Thank you so much for every answer, Mark C. Love to you, GP. All the awesome chatters today. Upa's beautiful satsang, cosmic love. We are collective consciousness, so we all wake up together. Yep, we do. My awakening is your awakening. So thank you all. I love you all. I will see you next week.